James.
Hey Andrew, good to be here.
Good to see you again.
Yeah, isn't it? It's been some time.
It has, yeah. Well, thanks for making time to have a chat with me today, and I thought I'd ask you to introduce yourself.
Yeah, look, a pleasure. We are Recce Pharmaceuticals. So Recce has clinically the most advanced new class of antibiotic in the world at this time, according to Pew Charitable Trust and World Health Organization, tackling the global health threat of antibiotic resistance. So that hypercellular mutation of bacteria, we stop it, and we stop it irreversibly. So I run ASX RCE, Recce Pharmaceuticals. It's about 100 million market cap. Fidelity is about 7.7% shareholder. I started as the founding investor, in fact, so I've invested in every capital round to date. But the best investment is the one that doesn't hurt your equity position, and really that's been a flattering outcome of working with Endpoints.
Thanks, James. Endpoints Capital was founded in 2023, backed by a family office in Australia. Our main goal was in response to the challenging capital markets that particularly biotechs have seen, challenging raising capital. Asset prices, share prices have all taken a dip because of the sentiment in the market. And what we saw is really a big slowdown in that biotech investment and that R&D journey that a lot of biotechs are taking. And so with Endpoints Capital, we are able to assist those companies to continue on with those R&D journeys. And a bit of background about Endpoints Capital and the team behind it. We've been investing in life sciences for 30 years, and we've recently invested in an Australian bioanalytical lab and an Australian clinical research organisation, which was really how I got into the sector as a lowly accountant. But it's been really exciting to...
You're the CFO, mate. Come on.
Okay. I'm a self-confessed numbers
nerd.
There we
go. Yeah, loves your numbers in your biotech.
Love a spreadsheet. But what's critical is our offering was really deep in the biotech industry. That we're the market leader for R&D finance in the biotech industry in Australia, and I think that's really our right to play in that space, given our background and given our experience in that way. So, that's helping ASX listed companies like yourself, local private biotechs, but also, inbound overseas biotechs who we really like to roll the red carpet out and demonstrate Australia's capability, a bit like a concierge service. And we also provide finance, but to sort of show the whole sector how we can really integrate into your business and not just be, a payday lending service where we're really trying to, insert ourselves up front, right? Exactly, yeah.
And it's so important because the journey can be a very lonesome journey. You take through a typical equity round, you take a whole lot of money off public shareholders, and you go out to deliver. And we've got a good history of delivering that. But you don't have the day-to-day feedback if you choose to have that. In our case, we are regularly asking for tips and tricks and introductions to many of the leading organisations. Some of them you guys also own. But that capital partner to go on that journey together is one that not only provides the capital necessity to fund that journey, but the smart capital and insights and opportunities that come with working with a group like Endpoints. And that was very attractive to us.
Look, I think we aren't, as a family office, scientists per se. So we needed a way to invest capital back into the industry in a way that was innovative, that sponsors, founders, shareholders, VCs could see the value in what we were doing. We weren't trying to take equity positions, we weren't trying to dilute, but we were really trying to keep those studies continuing on. And I think that's going to be beneficial for the science, for the patients, the service providers, and the industry. So we're really excited to be doing things that we're doing. But I'm curious, why did you choose Endpoints? How did we set ourselves apart from other options that you had?
Look, despite being great people, and we have a philosophy of good people and great science, but besides being great people, you really do have a leading product. We at the end of the day have to make the best choice for our shareholders and company, and in doing that we choose the best product. In this case, the best financial solution is a financial solution that removes the necessity to go out for equity funding. Depending on the stage of business, we are past the venture capital stage, but if we look to those in that field, there's not a lot of venture in Australian capital. And when we look to our public sphere, which we're obviously enlisted on the ASX and Frankfurt Exchange, the amount or the availability and liquidity in the public sector from way of retail and institutional investment has dwindled. So access to capital is difficult, and smart capital on a very, very equitable, balanced rate where it doesn't impact your intellectual property. It doesn't hurt your equity structure because, I'm the second, third largest shareholder. I don't want to be punished on taking the cash required to advance our company. Endpoints had just the right solution and a very smart solution above and beyond any other provider in the space.
So obviously when we came to you and we, structured an arrangement for funding for your R&D program, it was not just looking at your historical R&D tax credits, but actually your forward funding. Can you tell me how that kind of changed the dial for you guys and the significance of that? Because we did want to do something different. We really wanted to challenge the status quo in this area and give something to you and the business that we thought you could really leverage.
Look, I think that was absolutely transformational. Gone are the days of any actual venture in any capital, meaning you've got to typically accrue the expenditure, spend a fair bit of money to get a third-party accountant to explain that expenditure, to authenticate that expenditure, and then normally a provider would do a simple discount to that on a risk basis. That's not good business. So good business where you have a really good path, a clear runway forward. We're doing clinical trials here. It's pretty straightforward. You guys specialise in that among your other businesses in the background. You look to a scenario where you know what you're going to spend, the R&D rebate's going to occur because of the nature of the expenditure, and you're able to work with a capital partner on that journey together and have access to that capital as and when you need it. Having a historical basis, claiming only a proportion of a proportion on a historical, means the time value of money equation doesn't play as well in your favour. If you can access that money upfront, as is the case here, on both the historical, because of course we didn't have this in place, so historical but forward-looking too, you're able to continue to invest. So where you get that 43.5 R&D rebate, which all Australian R&D companies do, as you continue to reinvest it, the cyclical nature of that reinvestment strategy, you can actually boost that number up to, I think the case study said something like 48% on a reoccurring basis. So it's a very attractive, in fact, I think imperative funding strategy to our development progress.
That's amazing. Yeah, we talk about the recycling effect, right? Because we provide multiple rounds of funding, during the year. So you're actually taking even more credits from the capital, not just the capital you're spending, but then the capital that we give you. You generate more credits, and I think, I'm a numbers nerd.
We love the credits. The credits are foundational to this. Yeah, they're good for you, they're good for us.
I'm openly happy to admit I'm an absolute numbers geek, and when I was looking at the cash flow modelling, and I always talk about the light bulb moment when people realise just how smart you can be with your own cash. You can preserve, equity holders' capital for a rainy day or sell down, dilute less of the company, and we're there to support you in that way. We're very proud of the fact that we're doing this and supporting, the Australian industry. The funding that we give is all based in Australia, and I think, again, that's one of our competitive advantages where we're not sending requests off overseas that might take, 4 to 6 weeks to come back, where we're literally here, we can pick up the phone as we have, and we've been able to move pretty quickly. So
I've enjoyed onboarding you guys a little in our business in that process too, because the smart capital nature of the family office. I met with the managing director of the biggest investment fund in Australia yesterday, and he said, without saying the person's name, he said, "I must speak with you, so I must speak with you." I'm like, well, thanks for having me. So that nature of the opportunity of connectivity that comes with that network effect, it just creates so many extra value points outside of just a nice bit of money.
Yeah, that's really good feedback. I think the other thing that we think we do really well is we connect biotechs and service providers with each other, because it's a big network. A lot of different states do 3 different things, as we know, and to be able to point companies in the right direction, such as yours, and looking at your program, you change service providers from time to time. Most likely we've had involvement with them in other walks of life as we've invested in other businesses. So yeah, I think we'd like to think that we'll be partnering with you for, some years to come, and all the amazing things you're doing, as you do later phase work. You've got an amazing $54 million overseas advanced finding.
It's a guarantee. You got to love it.
It's incredible,
It's good to bank.
right? And it's I think I'm reminded of the silent pandemic that you guys are looking to solve, right?
Yeah, look, it is. I think it's one of the greatest threats to human health today. In fact, as I think it was the World Health Organization said the other day, antimicrobial resistance or superbugs. I mean, gone are the days where you use one antibiotic. You go to the doctor gives you a prescription, says to take that, get better. Now, say 5-10 years after that, they say take the prescription and those follow-on repeats. And the reason you have to do that is the bacteria have mutated, the antibiotics have just not kept up. So with the power of this non-dilutionary capital, we are able to invest in things like mechanism of action studies. Why is our compound able to work and keep on working with repeated use, which is the fundamental challenge of antibiotics today. We're able to have that horsepower to take on those like 80% upfront invoices that you do as a business when developing the first new class of antibiotics in over 40 years.
We often hear the phrase in biotech, time is money.
Oh, massively. The time value of money is just extraordinary. One of the biggest things I really thought about when taking on the Endpoints scenario was you looked at the 43.5% R&D rebate, and the historical way of doing it is you accrue the expenditure, the financial year ends, and then if you're lucky, which we're always lucky in that instance, you get it back 6 months later. So it can be 18 months after that money's gone out of the door. I mean, just think of inflation-wise, you're already 6% behind in historical. Now, if somebody came to you, as is how I banked it to myself, and said, instead of the 43.5 cents rebate, we'll give you a discount to that. So, yeah, look, the interest rate is 15%, but I don't think 15% of everything. It's 15% of the 43.5%. So it's like saying, here's, just for round numbers, you're the numbers guy, but here's like 38% caveat-free, do as you wish, and continue to reinvest it over that time period. You'll probably make it up to the 43.5% anyway. So I come up with that 38-ish% when looking at the interest rate as a deduction to the 43.5%, not as your live entity type scenario. So about 38% of just grab it with both hands and run quickly because of the time value of money in nature, continue to reinvest it. Oh, that's very attractive.
I knew when I met you I'd met my match, because the way you were talking about how well you understood the principles of finance, I knew I really wanted to work with you, and I think you've hit the nail on the head that a lot of biotechs, be they public or private, they say to me, well, if I've raised 10 million from equity, why would I use a non-dilutive debt solution?
It's a force enabler. It's literally additional horsepower. You raise, say you raise 10, and we raised 10 not so long ago. Fidelity took 7.7% of the company, which was nice. But 10 million of cash in R&D language is actually like 15 million of true cash runway, because you're getting that 43.5 cents. And you're also reducing the dilutionary impact for those shareholders that come in. Our last capital raise was fairly brutal, and we were one of the better ones. Biotech equity markets are tough, and I say that in the context of, oh, look, you could do OPIs. That's just a hidden discount. So we didn't do options or warrants, as they're otherwise known. We did like a 33% discount to the volume-weighted price. Now, that's 33% punishment to the underlying equity structure of the company. With an endpoint solution, we get a whole lot of cash for no dilution. And as I talk about the interest rate, which everyone goes, oh, no, that's a terrible interest rate. Mate, it's a discount off the 43.5%. I'm very happy and willing and able to take.
Well, yeah, just doing rough sums, 30% discount on 100 million market cap is probably a little bit more than I'm being facetious, a little bit more than the cost of our funding, right?
But you got to do
and what's
it.
that worth? Right?
I mean, can you sell an unapproved drug? The answer is no. What's revenue in early stage biotech development? Doesn't exist. And anyone who claims R&D rebate as revenue that's not revenue. So it is a scenario of access to capital, availability to capital. If you're a business with that gets R&D rebates, and they're very simple to get, you don't need to be anything of any consequence. You have cash sitting on your balance sheet, and I'd much rather use that cash today to deploy it, because it's not best saved over at the government for them to hopefully not change the legislation and things that can otherwise happen between times. You guys bear that risk.
We do, but yeah, I think that that's an interesting question, and we've asked ourselves that is the government leaning towards abolishing the scheme? I would think it would be a very poor way to try and rein in government expenditure for such an amazing industry. Oz Biotech came out last year and demonstrated that for every $1 of R&D tax rebate refunded, it creates $3 in the market, and that's a great multiplier. And we've seen the industry grow tremendously over the last 3 years, and it's I think Australia does punch above its weight in terms of the drug development arena. Early stage biotechs from all over the world love coming to Australia for all of its benefits, as you know. You've lived and breathed it far longer than I have, so yeah.
You've been around, mate. I've seen some of your successes. They're pretty cool. No. But on the R&D rebate side of things, one of the comfort protections they can put in place, in fact, is this little old thing called an overseas advanced finding. And what that does is you can actually go to and we've got one of these. In fact, we've got the biggest of any company in Australia, to my knowledge. And you go to the government and you say, "Hey, government, we're a business developing an R&D, a research and development, a biotech company, and we need to do these things to advance our compound to have a commercial opportunity as a little Australian company. They're going to cost about this, and some of them can't be done in Australia." And they look to you and they ask you to evidence that it's not easy, but it's well worth it. And we managed to do two things. One, guarantee $55 million of R&D rebate surety over a 3-year period. And you can get that historical as well to capture if you need to. And two, to extend that overseas. So about 50% of our expenditure is in fact overseas. I mean, you look to doing, tuberculosis in monkeys. I don't remember seeing a monkey out there here in Australia. So you got to go overseas to do much of that. But that gives an underwritten...
What's that? There's a couple next door.
Yeah, I know a few. But you really do get that advantage to extend your R&D, to guarantee your R&D, and to bank your R&D. And that, of course, you might get a better interest rate.
Yeah, I think Australia is an island, as we know, and for particularly, infections, bacteria, and a lot of patient recruitment, actually. There's not necessarily the population here to do that later phase work, as you know, right? So, you're going into, Southeast Asia, Indonesia.
Yep.
That's a great, local, what's our neighbour? It's our, largest neighbour, northerly neighbour, and that's a serious threat to their people, right? Some of the things that you're helping them.
278 million people there across Indonesia. Over 10% have diabetes. If you have diabetes, you have 2 to 3 times the chance of getting an infection. If you get an infection, we want to know about it because any bacterial infection in any place has been demonstrated to be not only safely treated, but treated effectively with our compounds. So, we're there and we're very active.
So I'm interested in your thoughts, James, on Australia's, early stage clinical research, ecosystem. And obviously you've got 2 compounds that are, developing through the journey, and that's now not just TGA, but FDA. What's been your experience with that journey?
Look, it's a funny journey in the context of when you start a company, you start in a dish. In fact, my private stuff's called Petri Capital. Everything good starts in a dish, but that's just another side story. We start in a dish. Now, you can do that in Australia. You then want to go to animals. It's just a necessity of drug development. And in our experience, historically, there's not a lot of animal studies that you can do in Australia. So you go overseas to do that. And then you come back to do your clinical study here in Australia. Australia has the best clinical studies done to international regulatory standards anywhere in the world. In fact, when we were submitting for our QIDP designation, so Qualified Infectious Disease Product designation with the US FDA, it's a legal status that we have awarded for our sepsis drug candidate, we continued to build a relationship post that, and in a recent discussion with them, they said to me that 2/3 of all study data submitted to them, including some recent by us in the background, are in fact done in Australia. Now, that explains why it's been a little hard to get some clinical space in Australia, but it also explains why the quality of product that has come from a result of working with Australian clinical research institutes and their affiliate providers has been excellent.
Yeah, that's a great stat, and that demonstrates how much Australia has really put itself on the map. Obviously it's always been a great place and great scientists, but then during COVID, in the roles that I was involved with at the time, we saw a lot of companies, a lot of biotechs come to Australia, and they realised that there were these amazing benefits to doing clinical research in Australia beyond the 43.5% tax rebate. The 6-week ethics approval process, the data, as you say, that gets recognised globally. So that's great to hear that you've seen that as well.
Yeah, most definitely. I really see it as a destination for phase 1 studies. We as a population, I mean, Australia is 28 million people or somewhere around that. It gets a little more difficult when you go to your phase 2, so your efficacy phases, because you're looking for patients of a described condition. So whether it be diabetic foot ulcers in our case, sepsis patients, well, they're in every hospital, that's a bit easier, urinary tract infections. But for healthy individuals, which is you're looking at your safety and tolerability of the compound, plenty available, excellent quality of data that is recognised by those international regulatory authorities. So certainly it's a bit of a move over. The US and beyond is coming, and they're very much already here.
Great. And have you got more in the pipeline?
Look, we do, yeah. So we've diabetic foot infections are occurring out at by way of treatment in a phase 2 study out of Liverpool Hospital in New South Wales. I think you'll find across northern teaching hospitals here in Sydney, another topical related efficacy program will take place soon. Additional Australian clinical study sites are coming online for us expanding those sites. The US Department of Defence burn and blast wound activities.
Wow.
So, we may have tried to announce something, but if you think of a recommendation for funding, that could be in relation to a grant, that would be with the US Department of Army. So where you have infections, whether it be topically, nasally in your sinuses, inhalation from your lungs, in your blood, there's not supposed to be any bacteria in there, that's known as blood poisoning or sepsis. Our compound has demonstrated to work and keep on working with repeated use. So we're just getting that through those clinical studies required to get to that end goal of if successful, market approval and beyond.
James, it's been a privilege talking to you, and actually, we're very grateful that you've taken a bit of a leap of faith with us, and we're really excited to be working with you as your non-dilutive strategic partner.
You're our
for
capital
funding.
partner,
And,
Andrew. You can call it that. I call it that. It's really, we are hand in hand working together.
Yeah.
And to go on that journey together is a real privilege. The smartest capital solution available. We left a long-term capital provider who had been a wonderful support for us for 6 years, but they just couldn't keep up. And this solution is a solution that empowers us to get ahead, knowing that the money's there, and we are thrilled to do so.
It's been great talking to you, James. Thank you very much.
A pleasure. Thanks, Andrew.
Well, thanks everyone for tuning in. If you'd like to learn more about Recce Pharmaceuticals and their anti-infective research and science, jump on their website at recce.com.au. And if you'd like to learn more about us, it's endpointscapital.com.au. Reach out to myself or to Holly, and we'd love to learn about your business and your science and how we can help. Thank you very much.